Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the super weird Spyderco Parata? I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Wow, what a weird knife. If you're familiar with Spyderco though, it's like, yeah, that looks like something they do sometimes. But very interesting. In fact, I know, like just looking back at my reviews and the ones that get the most views, it's the weird Spydercos. I know why you're here. So many of you are looking at that going, I have no interest in that, but I gotta find out what the heck is going on. Welcome! Welcome. I will link this knife right down in the description because it is available. And believe me, we're going to talk all about it. So you can check it out down there if you'd like. Thanks so much to my generous patrons who are supporting me right now. There's a link for Patreon right down below. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. This was sent to me by, let me make sure, yeah, Jason. Jason, thank you so much for sending this in. I really appreciate that. It's because of people like Jason that I can bring you guys daily knife content. Overall length of the Spyderco Parata, it's about 8 inches. Yeah, it's about 8 inches. Blade length is, no, that's not right. Blade length is about 3.4. Cutting edge, almost 3 1/4. Everything is so curved. Beep, beep. You know, like everything is so curved, it's getting a straight measurement on curved lines. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Wrap Model 1 and Model 2. So you can see here, it's a big knife. It's a full-size knife. It's got a lot of presence because of all the curvature, and when it folds up, yeah, a lot of presence. So it might not be as long as the Rat 1, but it feels a lot bigger. How about up against the Spyderco? Here's some Spydercos. Spyderco PM2 and Para 3. Para 3 on the bottom. I don't know why I did that one first. So yeah, we're looking at a similar overall length, close, to the Spyderco PM2, but it's a little longer. I mean, it's definitely longer than the Para 3. But again, it's so curved. I mean, it just creates this massive item in the pocket. Last but not least, the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue. Not much to say here. More of the same. So there you go. I hope you got what you wanted out of the size comparisons. Let's go ahead and fold this guy up. So here's the mechanism. Interesting. We'll talk more about that. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. Surprisingly, it's actually quite a bit thinner than the Para 3. All right, length and height. This is like such a weird banana-shaped knife. You can see here it is about this. It's close to the same length, close as the Spyderco Para 3. Height down here over the Spidey hole, not so much, but up here, right in the booty or the belly, whatever you want to call that. Yeah, it's actually taller. Is it? Yeah, it's taller. So it's thin, but it's such a goofy shape. This is definitely going to bother some people, but other people it won't bother you at all, right? It is weird in the pocket. It feels like a weirder PM2, right? For reference. Let's go ahead and measure blade stock thickness because we don't have a super duper thick blade. I'm gonna guess that's 125 to 130 thousandths, maybe thinner. I don't know. Let's find out. It's thinner, 115 thousandths. So there you go. That's why we do the measurements, because I'm not always good at guessing. How about hardware check? Get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the description in the section where I talk about my tools. T8 for the pivot, I'm guessing. Yeah, T8. Okay, body screw, that's T6. T6, the pocket clip screw, just one. That's great. Love the wire clip on knives like this. T8 on both sides, so that's nice. Not a lot of hardware. This sort of tension lock thingy back here might create some weirdness when you are taking it apart. Obviously, you kind of have to put it in and then move some parts and kind of hold some parts together. It's kind of like if you've ever, I'm not saying it's the same as the cage lock or it's the same as the axis lock, right? Which is the same as taking apart an auto, but those of you who are taking apart stuff like that, you're probably going to be dealing with something similar, so be wary. Weight. What's the inside of this? Let's look at the inside of it first before we weigh it. So, got the blade, we got some G10, and nothing else, I don't think. I think this is all G10. Can we see in there? Can you guys see? Yeah, it's just G10. You do have some steel up here so that the blade is not riding directly on G10, which makes sense. What do I think this weighs? About probably 3.5 ounces. No, 2.93 ounces. That's crazy. This is actually ultra lightweight. That's what I would call it. Under 3 ounces. That's great. So the ratios are actually pretty good on this. Where's the balance at? About right, like directly under the pivot. Can I get it to balance? Yeah. Yeah, it actually does feel super duper lightweight. All right, let's go ahead and talk about this. Ergonomics. This looks like it was made very specifically to highlight ergonomics. Yeah, it does. Here's the thing though, guys. I couldn't tell you, like, it's one of those knives where I can pick it up and go, choked back? Oh yeah, it's pretty comfortable. Oh, choked up. Now that's comfortable. Look at this nice spot. It's ready to go. But ready to do what? What is this knife specifically so ready to do? I'm not really sure. I mean, food? Well, you can't really lay it, like maybe on the edge of a table like this? I don't know. Skinning? Maybe? I'm not really sure. I'll tell you this. Obviously the blade shape has a specific purpose, and maybe it excels at that. I look at everything from the perspective of, my own perspective, just using knives as an EDC knife. Would this knife be able to complete the task that I would throw at it day to day? Oh yeah, sure, definitely. If it more efficiently than some other knives? No, it's kind of weird, right? Like, it's comfortable. While I'm using it, it's gonna be comfortable. It's also kind of awkward, right? I know that some people, in fact, I would venture to guess the vast majority of people who buy this knife will buy it because it's weird looking. And what am I saying? Everybody who buys almost every knife, if you're watching this video, if you're in this section of the knife world, the enthusiast community, right? That's where you are, like it or not. We're all buying knives because we like the way that they look, right? Or because they got some weird element. This thing is off the charts weird. It has a very what's the right word? Unorthodox? There's no ED. Unorthodox lock. Definitely. I mean, the way that it operates, right, it makes sense. It's just interesting. Blade shape's super weird. I can't tell you guys. I mean, here's the thing. Go down to the comment section and somebody down there probably has a better idea of what this is used for. I would guess skinning. I probably should have looked that up. But like every other, regardless of what the knife was designed for, right? People are going to say, you should know this before you review it. True. But it's like everything else that comes across my table, whether it was designed for self-defense or bushcraft, or it was designed for, breaking out of a helicopter cockpit. I'm going to look at it, from the perspective of the everyman. The guy who's just going to the grocery store, doing some yard work here and there, and opening up Amazon packages, right? So, will this do this? Yes. Will it do it as efficiently as some other, like this? No, this is a more convenient item. The lock, it is easy to disengage with two hands. Doing it with one, like if you want to Spyderco flick this thing out, it doesn't really want to do it because of the angle that it wants to come out like this. So, I mean, obviously the blade does, but you can see there, you can't do that thing where you kick straight up. It's not going to come out. It's almost like I got to hold it and kick it sideways. So, nah, you can do it like that, sure. Disengaging it with one hand, turn it like this, kind of shake it a little bit, then I guess so, kind of. There is no real, I guess, yeah, kind of like that. It doesn't feel safe. I kind of want to engage and disengage with two hands. You just kind of push up like this, right? People who are masters of the Spyderco Parata, right? If you dedicated your life to training with it, maybe you have a more efficient way of opening it. But for me, it's just kind of like this, right? That's how it feels. Now it is very solid, and you can see kind of how this is working. As the blade locks out, it slides the underside of the lock into the tang of the blade, and then it's bracing back here. Is it? Is that right? No, these are just the levers that operate that. I thought it was actually contacting that. But can we see in there? Yeah, you can. Okay, let me get the flashlight. So let's see if we can do this. you can watch all these parts move at the same time. I'm trying to get into a better position here. So watch, ready? See that tang move into place under there? That's how it's locking out. Interesting. Feels like a super strong lock, and I can tell you because of how everything's positioned, it's incredibly unlikely that it would disengage. In fact, I'm not going to say it's as strong as the Triad lock, but same kind of thing that I've always said. I think everything else about this knife would fail well before the lock would. I think you would break the blade before the lock disengaged, which in that case, wow, that's a strong lock. But now you don't have a blade, right? So sometimes it's like excess durability is interesting, but not necessary. It's still cool though. It's a very interesting lock, very unique. This is a Seki City, Japan Spyderco. Can we see? Yeah, Seki City, Japan. Metal complex, what's the steel? Can you flip that back over so we can take a look at the steel? Yeah, can you see that right there? Okay. VG10. All right. VG10. So think Endura, Delica, right? And Della. Japanese Spydercos using VG10 in their base models. Satin finish on this Spyderco is very ho-hum. In fact, this is a perfect example of why I'm absolutely sick of VG10, I'm sorry, of satin finished blades. This looks basically on par with the satin finished blades that come out of China, the Spyderco China satin finished blades. And honestly, like, I'm so over the satin finishes unless they are like hand rubbed satin, or they are absolutely perfectly clean with no belt burn, all the lines going exactly the same direction, right? Everything is perfectly consistent. Satin finished blades always show the most, like, if there's the tiniest flaw, they're so ready to show them, so ready to show scratches as well. This is a finish that I'm not super fond of, and it's not a good one. I just don't like how it looks. So there you go. The blade has a flat that carries out about 75% the length of the blade. You've got an interesting swedge. You have a lot of room to drop towards the cutting edge, but it really doesn't feel that, I don't know, it's kind of in between. It doesn't feel that much different than a Spyderco PM2. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's okay. I'm sure somebody could get this thing incredibly sharp. It just doesn't feel all that thin. I just expected it to be like, wow. Interesting. Yeah. Fit and finish on this guy, like the blade is a little wonky. Now, the owner did tell me it was a factory second. So maybe that's because of that nick up there. Do they do that on purpose? I don't know. Yeah, fit and finish on this guy is not super great, but factory second, so keep that in mind, right? Everything else feels okay. Maybe it was the blade. Maybe it was because of the satin finish on this. That's why, right? Everything else is operating exactly the way that I would expect. Looks like we are working with phosphor bronze in there. I don't know that I'm going to be able to get a flashlight on that where you guys are going to be able to see it. Maybe right here. Can we get in there? There you go. Phosphor bronze. That's what it feels like. It's okay, right? The action feels smooth. It doesn't feel gritty or anything like that. This one's obviously been well loved. We got a couple of spacers back here. We have a big lanyard barrel, which means taking this apart is probably going to be a nightmare because it looks like it's lipped over. It's also being prioritized over the clip, which is stupid. But okay, I wish the clip was up here and I wish the lanyard barrel was down here, but it's not. It's still carrying pretty deep. In fact, an amazing amount of the knife is hidden considering the pocket depth. I like the wire clip. I just wish the end of it came to more of a bill, but it's fine. This knife is surprising. Honestly, I'm surprised. It's centered, and like I said, the lockup is completely and totally solid. Okay, so this is super weird. Like, it's so weird. Like, it's giving off like I'm made for a very specific purpose, right? The people who buy me are probably interested in that. A few people will buy me. I'm the knife right now, talking about myself. A handful of people will buy me because they need specifically me for a very specific task. They will need exactly VG10 steel and G10 in exactly this shape, and I'll be the best tool ever for them. And then like everybody else is buying it because it looks weird and they're just choking down some things. I don't think this is the most optimal EDC knife. It's just kind of weird, but I get that it was likely designed for a specific purpose. Everything aside, right? I can split hairs on nitpicks and saying, well, good for this people, not so good for me. Here's blah, 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 blah. I'm just gonna shut this down real quick. The price, $200. I'm sorry, $196. No. 196. What? No. This is neat. It's kind of weird as, okay, you know, ergonomics are kind of neat, right? Blade's not the most amazing thing, but factory second, so okay, maybe it looks better. The lock's kind of neat, right? G10, VG10, kind of a weird lock. Unless this thing costs $100 to make, you're not going to convince me that this is a $200 knife, right? And yes, I understand, right? It's like that thing would need to actually cost $100 to create to get me to believe that this is a $200 knife. This feels like an $80 knife. That's what it feels like to me. I do not understand this at all. Whether you're comparing it to, let's compare it to less expensive knives in Spyderco's Chinese line. Let's compare it to similar knives in Spyderco's Japanese line. Let's compare it to Taichung Taiwan knives, to American Spyderco's. Seriously, this, do you know my Spyderco, listen, when I bought my Maximate Para 3, my US Maximate Para 3, it was $200. And I was like, wow, that's pretty freaking pricey. In fact, I didn't actually buy that. My wife bought it for me. The PM2 is a US-made Spyderco using G10 and S30V, probably moving on to S45VN. And what does it cost? $150. Most people will tell you the PM2 is a great knife, but it's a bit overpriced. American Spyderco. I'm not saying that, you know, I'd imagine Japanese manufacturing is pretty expensive. I don't know where it is on the scale versus American manufacturing, but in what world is $200 an appropriate price for this? You gotta really love this thing, because it's weird. If this was, okay, listen, if this was $100 to $120, realistically, $100 to $120. If it was $120, I'd be like, it kind of feels kind of high for VG10 and G10, but okay, if you like the weird stuff, knock yourself out. For $80, yeah, okay, it's weird, but VG10 and G10, that's about where I'd put that, you know? $200 what? No. Sorry, I can't, not even close. This, I'm really glad that I got to look at this. Like, I mean, I'm glad I got to experience it, because I would never buy this, but I still wanted to look at it and figure out what the heck was going on, all right? Sometimes I see the price online and I look at the picture and I'm like, no. And then I get it and I go, oh, okay, I understand now. I understand why it's so expensive. This was the opposite. I wanted to take a look at it because it was weird. I knew what the steel was. I just wanted to make sure that I understood. I feel like I understand. It's just too much money. So, like I said, it's down there. I'll still link it, right? But no, for $200, especially if you're new, right? If you're new and you're looking at that and you're like, wow, cool. There's a lot of competition at $200, and a lot of it you'll find in Spyderco's own line. A better EDC design. I mean, if your day-to-day requires something specific, then get something specific. But for most of you, right, day-to-day, there's better knives. Steel, definitely better. Materials and function, better. Fit and finish, better. For $200, you can find it in Spyderco's own line, or you can find it in other places, but not here. I'll put it in my Spyderco Knives playlist. I've reviewed a lot of Spydercos, so you can check that out if you'd like to see some other Spydercos that I actually do recommend. Anyways, guys, I think that's going to be pretty much it. Yeah, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.